Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If not, welcome back and thank you for supporting me. I'm Coretta. In this video, I will show you how I made an extra large double layer applique patch using my Brother SE1900 single needle embroidery machine. Come on y'all, let's see how I did it. For this project, I will be using tearaway stabilizer, glitter HTV, a felt sheet, the stiff kind, and the 5x12 repositional hoop, temporary adhesive, embroidery thread, and embroidery scissors. I will leave a list of these items in the description of the video. Here in Embrilliance, I am using Stitch Artist Level 3. You can use Embrilliance Essential or Embrilliance Enthusiast to complete this project. If you do not have the Embrilliance software, you can have your design digitized as a split design. Then you would follow the steps that I will show on the embroidery machine. The first thing I'm going to do is select the repositionable hoop. To select the repositionable hoop, I am going to select Edit on the top menu, and I'm going to select Preferences. When the program preference open, I am going to make sure that my format is PES, and that's because I am using a Brother SE1900. You will select the file format for your embroidery machine. To the right of format is hoop style, and here I am going to select multi-position. For the hoop size, I am going to select 130 by 300, which is the jumbo hoop. And on the bottom of the hoop sizes, you can see that it says the sewing field is approximately 12 by 5. Because my design is horizontal, I am going to make sure that rotate 90 is selected. And if your design is vertical, you do not need to select rotate 90. So then after that, I am going to select apply and OK. Here is the repositional hoop. The hoop size is actually two 5x7 hoops that overlap. So on the left, you have a 5x7 hoop, and on the right, you have a 5x7 hoop. Next, I am going to open my design. To open the design, I am going to select File on the top menu. I'm going to select Open. I am going to navigate to where the file is located, and I am going to select my file, and then I'm going to select Open. With the design on the canvas, I am going to make sure that it is centered. To check to see if the design is centered, I'm going to go to the top menu. I'm going to select Utility, and then I would select Center to Hoop, but it is grayed out, and so that lets me know that it is centered in the hoop. If it was darker, then you would just select Center in Hoop, and then your design would center in the hoop. Now I am going to save the design as a split design. To save the file, I am going to select File on the top menu. I am going to select Save as Stitch and Working. I am going to name my file. And then I'm going to make sure that my Save As type is PES, and I am going to select Save. Here is the folder with the save files. Inside the folder, you will see that there is a Cowboys double applique bottom, number 1, a Cowboys double applique top 2, and there's a Cowboys double applique split design. And this is our working design. I am going to save the bottom number 1 and the top number 2 to my flash drive, and I am going to meet you at the embroidery machine. Here is the 5x12 repositionable hoop. This hoop has 4 slots. Slots 1 and 2 would embroider 1/2 of the design, and slots 3 and 4 would embroider the other half of your design. Depending on which half of the design you want to start with will depend on which slots you choose to start with first. So now I'm going to hoop 2 pieces of tearaway stabilizer. Here at the embroidery machine, I am going to place the hoop on the machine. I want to start with the first half of the design, so I'm going to place it in slots 1 and 2. That's what I'm going to place on the machine. Once the hoop is on the machine, I am going to get the design pulled up. My design is on a flash drive that is already in the embroidery machine. To locate the design, I am going to select the USB port. I am going to select the first half of my design. I am then going to select set. The design is not in the correct orientation, and so I'm going to select rotate, and I'm going to select rotate 90 degrees clockwise. I'm going to select OK, and I'm going to select in edit. Next, I am going to select embroidery. Once I select embroidery, the stitch order is going to show. When using the repositional hoop, it adds an outline stitch around the design. I do not want the outline stitch, so I am going to skip it. To skip it, I am going to select the needle with the plus and minus. I'm going to select the spool with the plus, and then I'm going to select OK, and that has moved me to my placement stitch. Next, I am going to lower the presser foot and press the green button to start the machine. This is going to stitch the first half of the placement stitch for the first layer. When the placement stitch is done, I am unhooping the hoop and I am going to place it in slots 3 and 4. With the hoop in slots 3 and 4, I am going to select the second half of the design. So I'm going to select cancel, select the hoop here to cancel, and then I'm going to select the USB icon, and I'm going to select the second half. I'm going to select set. I'm going to select rotate 90 degrees clockwise, OK, in edit, embroidery. I am going to remove the outline stitch by pressing the needle with the plus sign, and then I'm going to select the spool with the plus sign, and I'm going to select OK. I'm going to lower the presser foot and press the green button to start the machine. And this is going to stitch out the second half of the placement stitch for the first layer. Once the placement stitch for the second half is finished, I am going to remove the hoop and place it back in slots 1 and 2. Then I am going to place the craft felt and the glitter over the placement stitch. And you want to make sure that you place it so that it covers the whole placement stitch. So just check it to make sure that you got it from edge to edge. Then I am going to pull up the first half of the design so that I can stitch the tack down for the first half of the first layer. To do this, I am going to cancel the second half, and I'm going to select the USB. I'm going to select the first half of the design. I'm going to select set. I'm going to select rotate. I'm going to rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Select OK, in edit, and embroidery. I'm going to select the needle with the plus and minus. And I am going to select the spool with the plus sign 2 times. And that is going to skip the outline and the placement stitch so that I can get to step 3, which is the tack down stitch of the first layer. And then I'm going to select OK. I am going to lower the presser foot, and I am going to press the green button to start the machine. And this is going to stitch the tack down stitch for the first half of the first layer. Now I'm going to move the hoop to slots 3 and 4 to stitch the tack down stitch for the second half of the first layer. I will follow the same steps to stitch the second half of the tack down stitch for the first layer. Now that I have the tack down stitch finished, I am going to trim the felt and the glitter, and I am just going to cut the felt and the glitter, and I am going to cut it as close as possible to the stitches without cutting my stitches. So I've trimmed the felt and the glitter, and so I'm going to place it back on the embroidery machine in hoops in slots 1 and 2. I am going to cancel the second half of the design, and I am going to go back to the first half of the design. So I'm going to select USB. I'm going to select the first half, and I'm going to select set. I'm going to rotate 90 degrees clockwise, select OK, select in edit, and select embroidery. I am going to select the needle with the plus and minus, and I am going to select the spool with the plus sign. I'm going to select that 3 times. And that is going to skip the outline stitch, the placement stitch, and the tack down stitch to get me to the 4th stitch, which is the satin border of the first layer. And then I'm going to select OK. I'm going to lower my presser foot, and I am going to press the green button. And this is going to stitch the satin border stitch for the first half of the first layer. Now I'm going to move the hoop to the third and fourth slots so that I can stitch the satin border for the second half of the first layer. I am going to cancel the design. The first half, I'm going to cancel it. And then I'm going to follow the same steps to stitch the second half of the satin border for the first layer. Now that the first layer is complete, I am going to stitch the second layer. And to start the second layer, I am going to place the hoop in slots 1 and slots 2. I'm going to cancel the first half, and I am going to pull up the first half of the design, pushing the USB, selecting the first half, selecting set, selecting rotate, rotate 90 degrees, select OK, in edit and embroidery. I am going to select the needle with the plus and minus, and I am going to select the spool with the plus sign 4 times. And this is going to skip the outline stitch, all 3 steps for the first layer, so that I can be on step 5 to stitch the placement stitch for the second layer. And then I'm going to select OK. I am going to lower the presser foot, and I am going to press the green button. This is going to stitch the placement stitch for the first half of the design of the second layer. Now I'm going to move the hoop to slots 3 and 4 to stitch the placement stitch for the second half of the second layer. I will follow the same steps to stitch the second half placement stitch for the second layer. Once the placement stitch is finished, I removed it from the hoop so that I can place the glitter. And so I'm just going to place my glitter inside of the outline. Now I am going to place the hoop back on the embroidery machine, and I am going to place it in slots 1 and slot 2. Then I'm going to pull up the first half of the design so that I can stitch the remaining stitches for the first half of the second layer. And so I'm going to select the USB. I'm going to select the first half. I'm going to select set. I am going to select rotate and rotate 90 degrees clockwise. I'm going to select in edit, and I'm going to select embroidery. I am going to select the needle with the plus and minus. I'm going to select the spool with the plus sign 5 times. This is going to skip the outline stitch, all 3 steps of the first layer, the placement stitch of the second layer, so that I can be on step 6 to stitch the tack down stitch for the second layer. And I'm going to select OK. I am going to lower the presser foot, and I am going to select the green button to start the machine. And this is going to stitch the tack down stitch of the first half of the second layer. And I'm also going to then let it stitch the satin border for the first half of the second layer. The first half of the second layer is complete, and so I am going to move the hoop to the 3rd and 4th slot so that I can stitch out the second half of the second layer, tack down stitch and satin border. I will follow the same steps to stitch the tack down and the satin border for the second half of the second layer. Okay, so after the patch finish, then I am just going to tear away the stabilizer. Then I can go in and clean up some of the areas where the felt is still there, like in this area right here. So I can go in and clean that up like that. Be careful not to cut any of your stitches when you are cleaning up. So you want to make sure you don't cut any of your stitches. You just want to get this excess felt off of here, out of this little corner right there. Now, I have some more cleaning up to do, but I'll do that off screen. Off camera. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to do that off camera. But this is the completed patch. And I know that these are a lot of steps to get the patch completed. But when you have a small hoop, you have to find workarounds to get larger projects done. And once I am finished cleaning up the patch, I can apply heat and bond to the back. You can either leave the tearaway stabilizer on here and then just apply the the heat and bond to the patch, or you can take out the tearaway stabilizer and then apply your patch. Again, this is the completed patch. So let me know in the comments what you think about how the patch came out. All right, guys. That's all for now. I hope that you're able to follow along with my process. If you like this video and would like to see more, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and consider subscribing to my channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you can be notified every time I upload a video. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will respond back. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.